This is a Mark's Parks review of Walibi Holland in less than 3 minutes. Walibi Holland was once owned by Six Flags, but is now owned by a French group that I'm not even going to try and pronounce. This park opened in 1971 and is situated in the province of Flevoland. Now, I visited this park in April 2025, in a week after their brand new RMC dueling coasters opened. These are named Yoy, but I believe pronounced Joy, and they offered two different ride experiences, Thrill and Chill. Now, when we went, we were expecting a quiet park day, but it was actually surprisingly busy. You go into the park through an impressive entrance with a big fountain and a globe and a giant sign. You then go through a building which includes some shops and the entrance to platform 13. This is a Vekoma launch coaster, which is actually a clone of Rock and Rollercoaster. You're then greeted by a huge wheel and a chance to turn left to coasters like Goliath and Yoy, or right to Untamed, Lost Gravity and Speed of Sound. So let's talk about the coasters. Untamed is a standout coaster for me and is a RMC conversion, originally operating as a wooden coaster before being given the RMC treatment. Untamed isn't a huge coaster, but it is a lot of fun. It packs in a ridiculous amount of airtime and it is just generally a great coaster. Unfortunately, long queues and one train operations meant that we only got to ride it once during our visit. The second standout coaster is Goliath. This is an Intamin steel mega coaster reaching a top speed of 65 miles per hour and is a lot of fun. And then of course there was a reason that we visited, the new dueling single rail coasters from RMC, Yoy Thrill and Yoy Chill. I will make a separate video on these as well. These coasters were a lot of fun to ride, and whilst I personally preferred Thrill, it was actually pretty close over which I preferred. Once again, the operations on these coasters weren't great, and purchasing a fast track for these was a really good investment because queues were massive. One thing I'll say about these coasters is that they are more fun when they're dueling. Another coaster to mention is Lost Gravity. This is a Mack Big Dipper, and again this was a lot of fun with a really quirky theme and a really well themed queue line. And quirky probably sums up the park's theming as a whole because it's best described as sort of quirky and stylised rather than themed in the way of other parks like Europa Park. The park, however, was really well kept. We also managed to get on some flat rides during the day, including the Rapids and a classic Mexican hat ride. One thing we didn't get a chance to see or experience was the Vekoma Boomerang. The park also has an SLC which certainly looks the part and was quite fun to watch, but I've been on enough SLCs to know that I wasn't going to go on it. The final ride we should talk about is Platform 13. This had an incredibly well themed queue line and a really punchy launch, but after that not really a lot happened. Overall, I enjoyed Walibi Holland. I thought it was a well kept park, but the park just didn't seem prepared for the amount of people that were there. There were rides that didn't open until the middle of the afternoon, and even rides that didn't open at all without any previous advertisement. Alongside that, operation was pretty slow and a lot of the coasters were operating on one train when they really shouldn't have been. I would, however, recommend the park, and I do want to go back and give it a go in the near future. Let me know below if you've been to Walibi Holland and what you think of it.